You're listening to Learn with Garrett Mickley. Hey there, my name's Garrett Mickley and I'm an entrepreneur, but sometimes I make podcasts. In the Learn podcast, you will learn more efficiently so you'll be more competitive and stay one step ahead in your field. I had trouble writing this week's post because I came up with an idea for a really cool app I think you are all going to love. It's going to help you figure out where you're lacking in productivity and then help you fix that and maintain a schedule that works for you, where you can get all of your work, family, personal, and learning time in every day. But I don't know how to program an app like that. I've only made one app before. It was a game, and it was for Android. It was also built in a game engine called Construct 2, so I didn't really have to learn to code. I've coded other things before, but not like this. That's no problem, though, because of the awesome programming tutorials over at Team Treehouse. I have a link in the show notes at learntolearn.club/E012 that can get you a discount on your first month. I signed up and spent a good portion of the weekend working on learning Swift, the programming language Apple uses for iOS and OS X apps. I tried to cram all the learning I could in this weekend because I want to get that app up and ready as soon as possible. But I'm also working on starting a company with some friends and had to fulfill those obligations, as well as some well-needed time with my friends and family. The problem is, I got burnt out. I tried to cram too much learning in one short span. I barely retained what I learned, and then I lost all of my productivity because I had no motivation to do anything else. I was too tired, and I didn't take time for myself. This week's episode is about not burning yourself out with your life, especially when it comes to learning. By the way, you can go to learntolearn.club/focus app for more information on that app I was telling you about. Here's the thing about our brains. They're super powerful, but they have limits. You can only cram so much information into your head before you hit temporary maximum capacity. At that point, you need to process the information before you move on to learning more. Think of your learning ability like a funnel with a tube running to a bucket. If you pour water in until the funnel is full and it has time to allow the water to travel down the tube into the bucket, you're good to go. Or you could keep pouring water into the funnel until it overflows and lose all of that extra water. Let's say you have a few hours of learning to do on a Saturday. Here's just one idea of what you can do. Spend an hour or two getting some learning done, but be cognizant of how much you're remembering. When you get to the point you feel like you might be at capacity, it's time for a break. It'll be easy to know now that you're aware it's a thing. Now go take a walk or make yourself some lunch. Continue to think about what you've learned and let your brain process it. After a little while, you'll feel a bit more refreshed and you can go back to learning. Then you just need to make sure you don't cram too much into your brain over the rest of the entire day. Getting enough rest is also important. When you sleep, your brain spends more time processing and internalizing your day and everything in it. That's why many people have dreams about things related to their day. It's a part of the brain doing its thing and making sure you process everything effectively. Getting enough sleep is going to be variable for everyone. I know some people who need 5 hours of sleep and they're good to go. And they do this night after night, day after day with no adverse health effects. If I did that, I'd probably have a breakdown in just a couple weeks. Unfortunately for me, I need more than average sleep to be at my best the next day. You need to figure out how much you need and then adjust your daily schedule around that to make sure you get accurate sleep each day. If you have trouble sleeping and feel terrible throughout the day or think that perhaps you sleep too much, I highly recommend you don't go Google it because the internet will just tell you terrible things. Go see your primary healthcare practitioner. That's a fancy way of saying doctor. Go see your doctor and let them know about your concerns. I'm sure they'll get you fixed right up. It's also important to note that if you do a lot of learning right before bed, your brain hasn't yet had enough time to process it, and you'll end up not forgetting it, maybe forgetting it, but you'll end up sleeping worse because your brain will still be trying to process it, and it's actually something that can help keep you awake. So if you ever need to stay up, go learn something. A lot of us are entrepreneurs, and we have a lot going on. We can't afford to lose productivity because our startup needs X, Y, and Z done. If you burn yourself out trying to learn too much in one day, or weekend, or maybe even week, then you're going to need some serious recovery time. During that recovery time, you're going to get very little, or maybe even nothing done. You'll end up binge playing The Sims, or watch an entire season of The Office in one sitting. Maybe you'll do both at the same time, or one right after the other. Either way, you'll end up losing a lot of time that could have been spent learning more or doing other things you care about, like a side project, spending time with your friends, or having a cookout with your family. When you overwork your brain like that, it gets tired, exhausted. It needs recovery time to get back to being able to handle your normal daily load of information, focus, and work. Your brain is very much like a muscle. When you use it, it grows and gets better. If you use it too much, you risk damaging it. Of course, like an overused muscle, it'll recover. You won't cause permanent damage to your brain from thinking too hard or learning too much, at least not as far as I know scientifically. We want to continue learning new things to help our careers, so don't let learning too much hurt your career by causing you mental fatigue. Mental fatigue leads to loss of productivity, and a loss of productivity means nothing is getting done at work or elsewhere. You certainly can't expect to get ahead that way. I want to thank you for listening to Learn with Garrett Mickley. That's me. I'm Garrett Mickley. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Mickley, and of course on my website. If you enjoyed this show, I'd really appreciate you subscribing and giving it a review at learntolearn.club/iTunes. I'd also like to point out that if you have any questions, shoot me an email at garrett@learntolearn.club, and I'll answer them in a future podcast. And don't forget to check out the show notes at learntolearn.club so you can grab any links or resources mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.